Today's guest on the podcast is Kate Northrup. She's the author of the new book, Do Less, a revolutionary approach to time and energy management for busy moms. We talk about everything from money to numbing behaviors to business, multitasking, simplicity, and energy vampires. We covered the gamut in about a 40-minute interview, and it was so much fun. I look forward to Kate's book, and you guys have got to listen to this episode because there's something in it for everyone. Hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Same 24 Hours podcast with Meredith Atwood. We all have the same 24 hours each day, and it's what we do with those hours that makes all the difference between our health, happiness, and success.
Welcome to another episode of the Same 24 Hours podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Atwood. Today's guest is Kate Northrup. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So I first heard about you with your first book, Money, a Love Story, because, well, who doesn't like to talk about debt?
Yeah, so I wrote a book that came out in 2013 called Money, a Love Story, untangling your financial woes.
That's when you know you're working on a new book.
I don't know what the subtitle of that book is, but I do know that what's been fascinating is to realize that the way we relate to money is very much connected to the way we relate to time. And those two things are very much connected with our sense of worth, because many, many people, myself included, are trying to prove their worth through their finances, but then also through productivity. And so over the last several years, since my last book came out, I got married, I had 2 kids, life changed pretty dramatically. And for anybody listening who has children, you'll know that having a kid really crystallizes your priorities super fast. And for me, it changed my relationship to time profoundly, because suddenly I had so much less time to myself, and I had to be really, really ruthless about my boundaries and get super, super focused. Yeah. And what I realized is during my pregnancy, I got super tired and during my first pregnancy and worked about half the amount I had worked up until that point. And then during the first year of motherhood, Penelope, our daughter, had some health challenges, and it was just a very difficult year, and we had only about 10 hours of childcare a week. And so I had to figure out, how can I work significantly less but still get the same results, because I didn't have anybody to pay for maternity leave. And my husband and I are entrepreneurs, so it wasn't like
it doesn't come with maternity leave.
Yeah, it doesn't come. Our business didn't come with maternity leave, and also it wasn't like anybody. I don't have a trust fund. We had to make it work,
right?
And so what ended up happening is I did get really focused, and I did get really clear on what the essentials were, and I stopped doing a lot of things, and I really kind of cut down on a lot of relationships and massively simplified. And what I found was, not only was I able to be present with my kids, but also our business remained steady and then ended up growing. And more importantly, I was happier and my work got better. And I really felt like I found the work that I was here to do. I'm incredibly proud of the work I've done around money, and it intertwines quite a bit with what I'm doing now. But I will say that the work I'm doing now around time and supporting women in managing their time and energy is really what I'm here to do.
And it's such important work. I mean, as a mom of 2 kids who are 14 months apart, you cannot be warned about what is coming. No one would have children, and you would never believe what a giant time commitment it is. I mean, every day we wake up and it's like an hour and a half is gone before you've accomplished anything if you're just trying to get kids out the door to go to school. It's amazing. So I think what you're doing is super important. So thank you for that. You said something very interesting about how you learn to cut down on relationships. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah. One of the things that I notice in myself, but also with, I have a community called Origin, which has nearly 1,000 female entrepreneurs. What I find when I work with women is that it's not so much that they don't have time to do the things they want to do. It's that they're letting their time and energy be sucked up by things that are draining. And one of those things is relationships. So, we are typically as women caregivers, right? A lot of us have been raised to be people pleasers and to take care of other people. And so it can feel like really terrifying to set boundaries and cut back on the relationships that just really aren't serving you. But you really have to look at, okay, after I spend time with this person, do I feel energized or do I feel drained?
Right.
And if you feel drained, and then you don't even have to have a good reason for it. Just like now, some of these relationships are in your family, so you can't do anything about it. But
sometimes these people just breathe and you're like, oh, there's my energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, going through birth and motherhood, and we had a very challenging year in our family last year as well with the birth of my second child. And then my husband got really sick. He's doing much better now, but it became so obviously so clear, like who my real people are and who they aren't. And I went as far as, I felt like I was like 12. I took a piece of paper in the back of my notebook and I wrote a list of my real friends. And I was like, these are my people and that's it. Yes. And these are the people who get my energy and my attention because they give back just as much. And anybody who's not on that list, it doesn't mean I'm not always open to new relationships, because I freaking love people and I'm always open to new relationships. But it was really important for me to dial back my energy and devote it completely to a few good people, as opposed to dispersing it across all these relationships, some of which I realized were draining.
And that's really hard being in the position you're in, because you are constantly giving and you have all these relationships. But I went through a very similar thing probably around the time you did. And I didn't write who my real friends were. I wrote who my real friends weren't.
Okay.
So I wrote a list of people that did what you said, drained me. Yeah. And I couldn't, social media. I actually have a whole chapter in my book coming up in the fall about people pleasing, because I was people pleasing these people I didn't even like. Like I wanted them to like me so much, and I didn't even like them. And social media was the big catapult that was making me nuts, because I would scroll, I would see them, I would get mad. And so one day I just blocked it all. Like anyone that was on that list I didn't like or I thought was draining me, I don't see them anymore.
That's great. And just for those,
everything.
It does change everything. And for those listening, if there are people that you would like to not see on social media, you can mute their accounts and they will still see that you follow them, so that you don't have to deal with a backlash of unfollowing. And if they see that and blah, blah, blah.
You can be like my mom and she just blocks people. I'm like, Mom, you don't have to block people. She's like, I don't care. Block.
That's so funny.
She just will block people. She doesn't care.
I will block people on my public page if they are nasty.
But she doesn't even, I don't think she realizes it's just a hard block. She's like, I don't care. I don't want to see it. Okay,
she's good at boundaries, maybe.
It's like she turned a certain age and she got really good at it. So I'm going to say
that actually is true. I do think that as we get older, we just care less what other people think. And I think that's such a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about this energy thing and people depleting it. So cutting out people. What else? What else?
Well, so as women, it's really important to know that we cycle on a 28-day-ish cycle, whereas men hormonally cycle every 24 hours.
Really?
So, yes.
That's terrifying.
it is no secret why all the time management systems and everything that's set up for every day to be the same as the day before generally doesn't work for women, because they were all set up for men, because we live in a patriarchy. And so for women to know this, it's so critical. We are cyclical beings, and every day is not supposed to be the same as the day before, nor is it supposed to be more productive than the day before. We're really caught on this endless linear path of constant improvement. And no wonder we're exhausted.
You just blew my mind, by the way. I'm sitting here with my mouth open because I have been trying to crack this code. Like, why yesterday did I accomplish 72 hours in 4? And then that just makes so much sense. Why did it never occur to me?
Well, it didn't occur to me really particularly until my friend Elise Viti, who wrote Woman Code, told me that. And my mind was also completely blown. And then I went on to really look at how that worked in my life, and then also in the lives of the entrepreneurs that we work with. And here's what I found. Every woman, whether you have a menstrual cycle or not, by the way, this applies to you. So we have these 4 particular phases of the month, and each of the phases is really a critical ingredient for our creative power. So we only learn in sex ed, right, about having your period. That's only 1 out of 4 phases in the cycle. But and by the way, for those who don't cycle, I like to follow the lunar calendar because it mimics this perfectly. And I don't think you need to be a woo-woo person. I just think it's an external structure that will remind you of your biology.
Okay.
So,
woo-woo.
Yeah. I'm a little bit woo-woo, but I'm just saying, if you're listening,
it's okay.
And there's actually really interesting data that shows us that as humans, we are actually affected by the moon. There's an increase in accidents at the full moon. There's an increase in emergency room visits, all kinds of things. So
crazy.
Anyway,
Energy vampires, all of them come out.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Yes, totally. But so there's these 4 key phases. And so the follicular phase is the phase after your period. It's the same thing as the waxing moon. It's the energy of springtime. So it's that new beginning energy, that fresh start energy. Then the next phase is ovulation. It's the same energy as the full moon. It's like the summertime, that high visibility, peak fertility, like open to receptivity, really great communication, just like out there energy. Then there's the luteal phase, which is the same energy as autumn and the same energy as the waning moon. And that's the time to cross your T's and dot your I's and wrap things up and bring whatever project you're working on or whatever phase of the project you're working on to completion. And then the next phase would be the menstrual phase, or the same as the new moon, or the same energy as the winter time. And that's the place for pause, for reflection, for research, and really for listening within for what's needed and what's next.
For binge watching Netflix.
Or binge watching Netflix. Absolutely. That would be totally appropriate. And the problem is that we have been taught that our worth is equal to our productivity. So we skip completely the 2 phases that are more inward, because we think that in order to be a good person and to be a successful person, we have to be out there all the time. But unfortunately, when you're out there all the time, not only do you get sick eventually, your body takes you out. Also, your work suffers because you get burned out, and your stuff kind of just isn't that good anymore. Your ideas just dry up.
This is mind blowing. Have you made a calendar that people can buy? Go run and do it.
It is in process. In process. So inside the book, there's a link to get the printable pages. Mm-hmm. So you can print them off the printable planner pages. I call it the Renewable planner system. And I am in process of making it so that you can order that, but at least you can print off the pages.
I love it. It just makes so much sense. It almost like puts together this huge puzzle for me, because since I left the legal profession, I guess going on 2 years, and now that I work for myself and I'm writing, It's just astounding how one day is one way and 1 week the next. There's just no rhyme or reason, but there is rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
It makes total sense.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of rhyme or reason. Yeah. And this is how we're built. There's a blueprint within us that we can just follow for peak productivity, but just no one ever told us because our world has been organized for men.
Wow. Okay, so now that everyone's mind is blown, women are pulling off on the side of the road while they're listening, breathing, going, "Oh my gosh." What does this mean for simplifying our lives?
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the good news. When you tap into these 4 phases of creativity and productivity, and you begin to organize your time around them, and you begin to organize your projects around them, it becomes instantly clear what you actually have space for and what you don't, because you won't move from starting something to launching something, back to starting something to launching something to starting to launching. And you'll actually build in the time for completion and for rest. And when you do that, you edge out the things that don't serve you. I also really have found, and this has been really awesome to watch, that the women we work with, I'm thinking of one in particular who massively simplified her life the year her second child was born. We'll just call her Sally. She really, through learning about this inner blueprint and also disconnecting from thinking that her worth was solely based on how much she got done, she actually reduced her work week to 20 hours because she realized that the things that she had been chasing were really very ego driven. And she was sort of on, as Dr. Shefali Sabari calls it, and she wrote the foreword to the book, the race to nowhere. And this idea that like someday she would get to this achievement level where suddenly she would feel worthy. And she just cut out a bunch of projects and dialed it way back and decided about the kind of mother she wanted to be and organized her schedule around what felt good and what she was proud of as being the kind of woman and mother she wanted to be, as opposed to the pushing and the keeping up with everyone on social media and the thinking that her list of achievements was going to fulfill her, which it doesn't. I mean, if you haven't figured that out yet, this is the news flash.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I talk about Bronnie Ware's book, The 5 Biggest Regrets of the Dying, in the book, when she talks about that there are these 5. She was a palliative care nurse, and she decided to write a book on the conversations that she had with her patients. And the 5 biggest regrets are, I wish that I had lived my life according to my own desires as opposed to everyone else's expectations. I wish that I had let myself feel my emotions more. I wish that I had kept in better touch with the people that I love. Really, really beautiful, but none of them were, I wish I had achieved more.
Right. So true. I was going to ask you something and it just escaped me, but
it'll come back.
It will come back in my next cycle.
Yes.
Let's talk about multitasking and how that is like the death of us.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you asked. So yeah, women are, we're celebrated for being such good multitaskers and whatever. And it is true. There was a study at UPenn that showed that women's brains are wired to be aware of multiple things at the same time, right? So we know when the food needs to come out of the oven, which kid is doing what, who needs to be picked up when, that the laundry is about to come out, that like we have to send this work email, and book the plane tickets. Like we are able to have a pan focus in a way that men cannot, but that is not the same thing as multitasking. And multitasking is actually just switching. So it's moving from one task to another. So let's say I was trying to text you at the same time as do this podcast, which I am not doing, but let's just pretend I thought I could because I thought I was some amazing multitasker. It actually, multitasking reduces our IQ to the degree that we might as well be drunk. And so I would never show up to your podcast drunk. I actually don't even drink, but for so many reasons I would not do that. And yet we are thinking we'll get more done if we do multiple things at the same time, but it will make you more tired. It makes you dumb. It makes you make mistakes, and it will make you so cranky. So I just want to say, rather than multitask, do one thing at a time. And if not everything can get done, that's a sign that you're trying to do too much. It's not a sign that there's something wrong with you.
Right. Last year at some point, I realized that it was actually probably a year and a half now. I realized that my life was a yard sale, and I call it a yard sale because I had like all this stuff that I was doing for other people, and it was super cheap. And like, I was just giving it away, stuff that used to mean something to me. And it was because I was multitasking, and multitasking actually bred yard sale for me. I used to have a singular focus, and then I started trying to do a bunch of things at once, caused by social media. And then I found myself with businesses and things that were just a yard sale. I had so many things going on, and multitasking birthed that crap for me. It truly did. And learning to dial that back was getting rid of some of the multitasking frenzy I had. And I have this terrible frenzy, and I get it from my dad. We call him the tornado, because if anything Ray does, it's going to be done at Mach speed and really fast, and all the groceries are going to be brought in all at once. And so I got it from him, but I realized that rushing was part of this multitasking, and it was this huge mechanism I was using that I didn't want to deal with my life. And that's a lot to unpack there. But
my gosh. I'm so glad you brought up that point about rushing as a numbing behavior. I mean, It's epidemic.
Yes.
We drink because we don't want to feel. We smoke because we don't want to feel. We watch TV, we shop, we have sex, and we stay busy. And it's so important to notice that in ourselves, to ask, am I doing this because it needs to be done? Or am I doing this because I have a feeling coming up right now that I don't want to feel?
And the biggest thing I can point to with rushing as a numbing behavior and mine was habitual. So I used to be a drinker. I'm 3 years sober.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. And I used to rush the kids to bed so I could drink. And now I find myself, come on, we're going to bed, come to bed. And I'm like, why am I doing this? This is a habitual rushing behavior that I used to do because I wanted to drink, because I wanted to numb. And now I have to pull myself out of it. I'm like, what's the big hurry?
That's such a great question, right? What is the big hurry? We're all just going to die. So,
right.
Like, why are we rushing? We're all headed to the exact same place, and none of us knows what happens after that.
Right.
So why not just be here?
I mean, I find myself rushing through the simplest of tasks. I mean, just stupid. And then I'll knock over, whatever. And then I'm mad. And it is crazy.
It is true. Rushing actually is, makes things take more time, because we do make mistakes. We forget things, we make errors, and then we have to go, clean up the thing we spilled, or go back to the task and redo it because we were rushing. And this is a lifelong practice for me. I love to go fast. Yeah. And so, I'm right there with you. And I do believe we teach what we need to learn. I've gotten so much better. But I believe it, for me, it's a spiritual practice to be intentional with my time, to slow down and be focused on what it is that I'm doing, or who it is, who I'm with.
A spiritual practice. I love that. It is. To slow it down is spiritual. Like this morning, I had to take my son to school. We had 4 minutes to get there. It's a 3-minute ride. He's a turtle riding a sloth. Like, that is the speed of him. And so I'm like, get your jacket on. And I'm trying to be calm, because I really am focusing on this slowing down. And I watch him get his plate and walk over to the sink. And instead of thinking, we're never going to get there, we're going to be late, I just looked at the back of his head and I thought, that is the sweetest back of any boy's head I've ever seen. He's going to be a teenager soon. Just enjoy this moment.
Yeah.
I did. And it made me love him so much, right? I mean, not that I don't love him, but in that moment, I had so much joy being his mother. It doesn't even sound like me saying this. If my mom's listening, she's like, who is this? Who has kidnapped my child? Because it's just not who I've been, but it's because I've made a point to slow down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it really, really works. It makes you enjoy your life so much. And that's what it's all about. Like there's, listen, I get that you have to pay the bills. Like I get that. I have to pay the bills as well. And so I'm not saying that we can just sit around and like eat bonbons on the couch and binge on Netflix during the day and I get it. I get it that you have to go to work and pay the mortgage and all of it. And at the same time, the idea here is to infuse the time that you are spending on doing the things you need to do with the energy of presence. So can you walk to your office door just a tiny bit slower? Can you notice on the way to work, like the trees or the way the sunshine is, or just like you said, getting your kid out the door to school? Can you notice the back of his head and just take that minute? That's not going to make you late to school.
Right. It's literally 0 seconds because he was going at the speed of turtle. It didn't matter. He was exactly that speed anyway. Yeah. And it's interesting you say, we have to make a living. And there's this recent aversion to what I call the concept of hustle. And I am a firm believer in the school of hustle, but there's a time and a place for it.
Yeah. I love that you said that because, I've been in business for myself for a really long time now, but essentially 12 to 14 years. And there are times like during a big promotion or, right now in the lead up to my book launch, I am doing more than I usually do. And because there is a season for it and I am in that season, but I have scheduled in for after the book launch, the season for doing less. And so it's not about no hustle ever. It's about scheduling it appropriately and not always having your foot on the gas. Because if you always have your foot on the gas, you run out of gas, right? So we have to really stop to refuel. And I'm really glad you brought that up because a lot of new entrepreneurs or people starting out will think like, oh, well, this person said that it should be easy and it should feel easy and I should be able to get to six figures, within my first 6 months and not hustle. And it's like, no, you have to be still hungry. And there are things, yes, I'm about doing less, but you still have to do things.
Right. I am so mad at the people that are trying to sell me. I went to a conference of hungry writers like 3 years ago. A bunch of people that wanted to write books and get their stuff published. And someone who was very successful, longtime blogger, stood up there and told us to ditch the hustle. And I got so mad. Like I was fuming because I know for a fact that woman hustled her ass off for 10 years. Yeah. And now she can Right.
You have to know your audience.
Yes.
Yes. Because, like I could speak now as a business owner who's been in business for 12 years. I could speak to a room of seasoned business owners and have a very different conversation than a bunch of people who are brand new.
Right. And so speaking of young writers, what do you tell people that say, oh, I want to write a book, but I could never?
Oh, I think you absolutely can. It really all it takes is logging hours in your chair. You just
have to sit there.
I wrote this book while I was pregnant with my second. And there's nothing like a pregnancy and an impending baby to make you just show up and do something. So what I would do is I would scheduled an hour every single day to show up at my computer. I did it at noon or about 1 because that's when my oldest would take a nap. And I did it 7 days a week and the book got written because I showed up every single day and I counted my words every day because I had a goal of how many words I needed to submit and I just added them up and I just got the words done. So, everybody's going to need help with their book. I don't recommend just writing it and then publishing it without having anyone else read it. People need editing, right? Like I need editing. We all need editing. And I will say, I think self-publishing is a beautiful path to take. So if you're thinking about writing a book and you want to self-publish, awesome. But I will say, I've received some self-published books that I read and I say, this needed editing.
Right.
So unfortunately, the quality can really suffer. And so find that editing, get those early readers and be diligent about it. Even though you can just write it and put it out there, doesn't mean you should.
Right. So my first book was self-published in 2011, 2012, and it just got acquired, and it's actually out in
Congrats.
3 weeks. But it was so funny because when my editor got a hold of the manuscript, I was like, oh, I just don't know what we can cut. And she was like, I do, all of part 2. I was like, what?
Yeah.
All of part 2.
I know. It's so intense. But you know what? You need somebody else for that. Yeah, I submitted my manuscript and the entire first chapter, she was like, yeah. Nope.
You know what I think it is about the first chapter? I think we're going to lead off with mystery and excitement and depth, and it's just way too dark or something.
Yeah. Mine was like my birth story, and she was just like, this was really beautiful, but it does not belong in this book. Right. I was like, great. Well, it was really therapeutic to write.
I'll make it into a blog. I have all these cut sections that are going to go into later blogs.
Oh, that's perfect.
It's like, yeah, that's so funny. So I want to talk to you about an Instagram post you posted, which just hit me. And I was like, yes. What we're not up on, we tend to be down on. We don't know. Who said that?
My mother thinks this is from Linus Pauling. I do not know. The internet does not think so.
Okay.
The internet doesn't know who it's by.
Kate's mother is Dr. Christiane Northrup. I forget what episode I interviewed her, and it just occurred to me today that they were related. So I clearly was multitasking when I booked you, Kate, because I was dumb. Gosh. I mean, your last name's not like Smith or something.
Well, technically my last name is Watts, but I use I started a business as Northrup, so I just keep it. Right. Yeah.
But aside from we don't know who said that quote, what does that quote mean to you? What we're not up on, we tend to be down on.
It's really a quote about ignorance and our resistance to move outside of our frame of reference. And so I think especially in this particular moment in history, it is so critical that we listen to other perspectives and that we learn from other people that we wouldn't usually learn from, because when we don't actually know about something, we'll bash it. It's human nature. And it's a major, major problem with what's going on in our world today, politically and socially and economically. And we need to open our hearts and open our minds and talk to people we wouldn't usually talk to, talk to people who think differently about politics than you, talk to people with different backgrounds, different skin colors. It's critical because we can make up, it's a quote about prejudice. We can make up so many things about how things are, but we've not taken the time to educate ourselves and to actually learn. And it's really time that we do that.
So your book coming out April 2nd, is that right?
April 2nd.
At least they didn't make it April Fool's Day. They do that to some people.
No, I know. Well, do you know books always launch on a Tuesday?
No.
Yeah. In the publishing world, I don't know why. It's just sort of this thing that all books launch on a Tuesday. And so, luckily in 2019, April 1st is not a Tuesday.
No. And my book is coming out March 12th. It's a Tuesday.
Oh yeah. It's always a Tuesday.
Wow.
It's publishing tradition.
Huh. See, I learned something every day. So this book, we kind of circled all the themes, but what is it? What is Do Less?
So Do Less, the subtitle is A Revolutionary Approach to Time and Energy Management for Busy Moms. So Do Less is separated into two parts. The first part really gives you the foundation. I particularly love the first chapter where I really get into the data on doing less.
Survived, which is the original chapter 2.
What was that? Oh yeah, that one's, yeah, exactly. Originally. Now I think it's chapter 1. And it's about the data that proves that doing less actually can get us better results. And then I talk about cyclical living and how we can get into momentum by tapping into our cyclical nature and our bodies as a productivity tool. Because we are made of nature. And this wonderful quote says, nature never rushes, yet everything gets done. And that's a quote from Lao Tzu. So it's really giving ourselves the foundation for that. And then the second half of the book is 14 do less experiments. So it's not about overhauling your entire life. It's not like a giant makeover. It's about little things that are leverage points for you to shift so that you can do less yet have more. And it's 14 little things to try. So the book is incredibly actionable. It's also evidence-based, and it's also really a spiritual guide. So it's all of those in one.
Oh, I'm so excited. This is the kind of thing that I could have really, really used as a new mom, but almost kind of turning into the teenage years. I think it's so much more important to be present. I think there's...
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, like all this emphasis on being present with your young kids, but I think I feel this overwhelming sense of I really need to be paying attention now that I've got tweens.
You know what? Actually, the data supports that. So I talk about this in the final chapter of the book, which is called Let It Be Enough, where the data shows that the amount of time believe it or not, the amount of time we spend with our children in the younger years does not impact their behavior or overall well-being. However, I know, shocking. Like, right. I mean, you can, of course, read the fine print in the data. Obviously, we still got to be with our kids. And of course, like, I love being with my kids. However, what shifts is that during the teen years, during adolescence, the amount of time a mother spends with her children and sort of the quality of the time actually does significantly decrease behavioral issues.
Wow.
Yeah, not to put pressure. Like, I'm sure those listening, you're already doing enough, but I just wanted to say that the data does support what you're already sensing.
Well, and I think just with what I've noticed with my children is they don't care how much time you're spending. They just care when they come to ask you a question that you turn and look at them and
yes.
You give them your attention. I realized I never did that. I was just sitting at my computer and they would come and I would not turn and look at them, or, I would just keep doing. It was this multitasking thing. And now I will put down not always. I may say, give me 30 seconds, but
yeah,
I say, give me 30 seconds so I can give you my full attention,
yes.
And then to turn to them. That has changed my relationship with my children just exponentially. And that's what everyone wants. Like, if you just,
yes.
and you mentioned Dr. Shefali. I had her on the podcast in the beginning and she changed my life. Like, she's changed so many people because she says these are individual souls. These are real people, not just kids that are made to be in your image. They have their own divine spirits and beings. And to me, I was like, what? Really? Like, and that seems so stupid. But when I started using my life or kind of acting, being a mother with that as my compass, it changed everything. Because then you're like, well, if this is a divine being, then they want your attention. They want to be respected and, to just kind of shove them off because you're on the computer. It really changed everything for me.
That's awesome. She does beautiful work. I love her.
So neat. Yeah. Well, Kate, thank you so much. I have one more question. This podcast is called The Same 24 Hours, and it means that we all have the same 24 hours in our day, but it's what we do during those hours that leads to our greatest health, happiness, and success. So what is one thing that you do on a daily basis that makes a difference in your life?
Back on the theme of presence, it's really like, even if it's for 5 minutes, being with my kids on the floor and just like really actually being there without doing anything else.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we will look for your book on the Tuesday in April. Do Less, A Revolutionary Approach to Time and Energy Management for Busy Moms. So thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you.